Hi everybody, let's talk constructivism. So what is constructivism? Constructivism in the classroom is when we focus our classroom not on the teacher and what the teacher does so much as how the students learn and what is their understanding of the learning that is occurring. And that is based off of the original work of Piaget and Vygotsky. So the idea is that children develop their learning or develop their intelligence not by being told what to think or what to know, but rather by building on their own experience and their own knowledge base. And that our job as teachers is to expand that knowledge base and give them opportunities to rethink and reconsider where they come from and what their understanding of the world is. So Piaget said that every child and every person has their own schema, which gradually becomes more complex as you get older, as you develop. And this happens through a sequence of adaptations. So that is where you build your knowledge. So as a newborn, your schema is a pretty blank slate, right? So there's that old idea of the tabula rasa, right? So we have this child who really, the only thing they know is that they need to eat and they need to make a mess, right? Like they need to use their diaper. And that's pretty much it. Like it's just take in the food and give out what's you don't need for your nutrition. And then slowly they develop to create bonds with people because that is a natural human thing to do. And they begin to understand that certain cries will get them certain things. So they build their knowledge base. And then as they grow older, they learn to reach for things. They learn to crawl to get to things that they want, to walk, to run, and to go and to move forward in their development. Disequilibrium results when the new or information or experience doesn't match the existing schema. So when a baby can't get the toy that it sees, it realizes that it has to reach for it. And before it starts to reach, it may cry, right? That child may cry because there's disequilibrium. If we can't understand something, 3-year-olds, 2s and 3-year-olds, right, have tantrums. They have tantrums because they can't always understand the world that's around them because they've been told no, or they can't touch something that's dangerous for them to touch. So they will have a tantrum. That's disequilibrium. When we feel frustrated by not understanding something, that is disequilibrium. But it is a learning opportunity. And when we modify that by, as a baby, learning to reach for something or crawl to something, or as an older child, when we learn to be able to get something on our own, how to open something or how to ask for something and use our words, that accommodation becomes the new learning that occurs. And motivation is an essential piece of learning. You learn because you have to learn to get the new information or the new experiences or to be able to understand your environment. So Vygotsky then went further with this. And he said, in fact, one of the ways humans accommodate is because we make sense of our world through tools. And we use physical tools and mental tools. So we gain knowledge, and those are our mental tools, how we problem solve, learning how to speak other languages, learning how to do math. Those are mental tools. Physical tools are the obvious ones, right? Having, a hammer or having a screwdriver, those kind of things, or a car to get us somewhere. Humans pass on that knowledge and skills. So I figured out that I needed a glass to drink water out of, so I needed that physical tool, and I needed the mental tools to be able to balance my bank account, so I needed to know how to do some math, and I pass on that information to both my students and my children. And that's what humans do. And that teaching creates learning opportunities, and those learning opportunities are called, according to Vygotsky, zones of development. And the zone of actual development is when you learn something and you learn it on your own and you don't need any help learning it. So it is really easy for some people to learn some things on their own. Like they may learn how to code a computer without any classes at all. They just go in and they just have they can watch something and they don't need anyone to help them do that. But if you need someone to help you learn how to code a computer, then you are in your zone of proximal development and you need a certain amount of assistance. So that assistance might be minimal by just taking a course or reading a book, or you may need to go through a whole course of study before you understand how to code a computer. Think about when you learn to drive a car. When someone learns to drive a car, they may have an idea of how to do it from watching people drive cars. Like, I know I have to go in, I think I have to turn this key, but you're not a very good driver, probably, until someone actually shows you how to do it. How you maybe watch some videos and you read the book on what the rules of the road are. That is your zone of proximal development. And all those things, the videos, the teacher, the book, all those things are, in fact, the supports that you use to get to that point where you can drive a car unaided, where you know the rules of the road and you know how to use the machinery that you have access to. So the zone of proximal development is this space. The zone of actual development, that's right here. That's in the middle. The learner can do unaided. So right now, even though my family might tell you differently, I can drive a car. And I can do it unaided. My zone of proximal development, though, when I was 17 years old, I needed a lot of help driving that car. My area out here is something that I cannot do. So I cannot fly a plane. And it is best, even though I have flown many times, and I have actually seen people flying a plane, I have no idea how to do it. And so I am right here, and I should not fly a plane. But maybe if I went to flight school, I would be here in my zone of proximal development where I could do it with guidance. And then someday, when I grow up, I could actually fly a plane. But it is unlikely that this will happen, but still, you never know. So those are examples of how we look at that zone of proximal development. And this is where you come in as a teacher, right? You spend your career moving children from where they cannot do something through their zone of proximal development to their zone of actual development, and then bringing them right back out and giving them a whole nother lesson to bring them to the next stage. And the strategies and the tools we use to support children, the temporary supports, are called scaffolding. And they are based off of this idea that just like in a building where we build stages and stages upon stages outside of a building as we're building it, you see scaffolding outside of a building to help the construction workers create this taller and taller building. Those scaffolds go up and up until the building gets to where it needs to be, until it's actual development. And then the scaffolds are slowly taken away as the building is finished. And that's what, when we're talking about scaffolding, we're talking about in teaching, we use that language all the time. It's the support, the coaching, the questioning, as well as the various strategies we use to support our students. So, what does constructivism look like in the classroom? Constructivism in the classroom is creating learning opportunities for children to explore, ask questions, and find out information both on their own but with your support. It is very much a hands-on approach that encourages research and inquiry. In a traditional classroom, so before we adopted this constructivist approach, that's that old view of classes that are in rows, where people learn individually. You get a lecture, and you take notes, and then you are tested, and you read the book. That's a traditional classroom. Constructivist classrooms ask students to actually begin a conversation with each other and with the teacher. And when we thought about constructivism, when we thought about the traditional classroom, we think about a classroom where the student is really not asked to learn the components beyond what is required for a test. And so one of the examples we give here is of a first grade class in a traditional classroom. They might just learn the vocabulary of what a map is, and that is how they are tested. But actually, in a constructivist classroom, and this may sound more like what you're used to because we were brought up in constructivist classrooms, is that you would draw a map. You would create directions on how to get to the cafeteria, or how to get around the town that you live in, or build a model of your town using Legos and then create a map, or build a model of your own created town and then create a map. That's constructivism. That's building off what a child knows about the school that they're in or the town that they live in, and then helping them to understand the directions, what a compass rose is, and what geographical features are. Constructivism requires us to use, to have our children develop higher order thinking skills of analysis, reflection, and then synthesis of information, rather than just memorizing data. Constructivist learning is really what happens when we give children experiences. So when you think of all of the projects you did as a kid, which are probably the things that you remember about school or remember field trips, those are all constructivist. They challenge a child to experience and explore in ways that they may not have ever done before. The 5 principles of a constructivist classroom, and these are important, is that the teacher seeks and values the viewpoint of the child, the individual child. That classroom activities are supposed to challenge kids. Kids are supposed to find school difficult and not easy. And when kids say it's easy, we need to ratchet it up, make it more rigorous to create more learning. In that space, that zone of proximal development, you should feel uncomfortable because that's where the learning takes place. Teachers also in a constructivist classroom pose problems that are real problems from the real world. We try to solve problems in social studies. If you have a debate during election season, that's posing real problems, that's relating it to the real world. In math, if they're learning how to measure so that they can create a garden for the school, for the playground in the school, or measure out where to put new playground equipment, that is a real world problem. And we build lessons around those big ideas, those big concepts of how are we able to build something? How do we vote in this country? And then we assess the learning in the context of the daily learning. So we do things like exit slips and quick reviews and quick tests to find out what happened today in our learning experience. Constructivist teachers are very reflective, and they think about their own teaching, and they encourage students to dialogue with them about what's the best ways for them to learn. And constructivist teachers create opportunities and relationships with students, because we come back and think about Rita Pearson at the beginning of this course. We create those relationships are where we are going to find the depth of learning. And constructivist teaching practices emphasize that children begin to question and modify their existing mental structures, so they see themselves as problem solvers. The benefits is that children become more confident. They have higher self-esteem. They are able to be more compassionate and empathetic. They are able to have a wider exploration of traditional content. they are able to become more creative, and traditionally they have higher scores. And we can watch this video. I'll let you do that on your own.
Dove Advanced
which will
Care's
tell
new
you
formula
more
enriched
about
with 1/4
constructivism.
moisturizers with natural